Hello, everyone. Welcome. What we're going to do in this video is we're going to build a language tutor, an intelligent chatbot that you can use to practice conversing in a foreign language. One of the most difficult but useful things when it comes to learning a foreign language is just engaging in conversation with people. Now, sometimes this can be intimidating, or you can feel, if you're anything like me, you can feel a little bit silly, struggling to speak like a 2 or 3-year-old. I personally started learning Spanish late in life. So sometimes I can find engaging in conversation, specifically long conversations, to be somewhat difficult and exhausting. But thankfully, there's a solution. And all you need to be able to do is develop an intelligent chatbot that can speak multiple foreign languages and utilizes cutting-edge AI technology. So that may sound difficult, but if it does, you're in luck, because exactly what we're going to do in this video is walk through that process step by step. So what we're going to do is we're going to develop, as I said, a chatbot. We'll call it Language Bot. And this is a chatbot tutor for people that are learning a foreign language. So what it's going to do is it's actually going to converse in natural language with that person in a wide range of different subjects or situations so that they can practice speaking in a non-intimidating environment. And we're going to build it to be able to do this in any language. And it's going to utilize GPT-3. So GPT-3 will essentially be the core of what makes this chatbot work. It's going to be doing most of the heavy lifting for us, but really what we need to do is we need to build an application around GPT-3 in order to turn this into a language tutor. So we're gonna do this in 3 different stages, just in order to simplify the process. So stage 1, we're going to build a language tutor, but it's just going to be English only. And that way we're going to be able to practice just to make sure that it's working properly before we add any speech or other languages. It's also going to be text only, so it's just going to be typing back and forth. In stage 2, we're actually going to add verbal conversations, so that's going to be text to speech, speech to text. And then in stage 3, we're going to complete the language bot by adding additional languages. So essentially be able to practice any language that you want. And with that, let's get started. So the first thing we need to do is we need to go to OpenAI's website, and we need to play around with GPT-3 in order to figure out how we're going to set this language tutor up. Now, most people think of ChatGPT. Well, GPT-3 is really like the API version of that. It allows you to access the model using our program. ChatGPT is a little bit different, but it is based on GPT-3. But what we need to do in the beginning is we need to set the context. We need to create what's called a prompt in order to essentially instruct GPT-3 to act like a language tutor. So we're gonna practice that in the playground here, and we'll just basically start with something simple. We can always adjust this later. So act as an English language teacher for your students are learning English as a second language. Your goal is to help your students practice their conversation skills. You will ask your students questions, answer your students questions, and ask follow-up questions. What else can we add here? Speak at a beginner 5-year-old level. Ask questions and engage in back and forth conversation about the students' interests in life, and also situations where the student may need conversation skills, such as in a restaurant, traveling, talking to new people, etc. Periodically change the conversation. So a lot of the benefit or a lot of the performance you're going to get out of the GPT model is going to be from the prompt. And this isn't necessarily the best prompt, but it's good enough where we can start to build our app. And we can always come back and we can modify this later. So teacher is going to start by saying, hello, my name is, I don't know, Sandra. I'm your teacher today. What is your name? And then the student's going to answer. So if I just submit this, what's going to happen is it's just going to continue to run as if it's completing the whole conversation. But that's not what we want. We want this to be a back and forth conversation. So it needs to stop every time the student answers a question. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to go over here to the parameters. We're going to look at the stop sequences. And we're just going to type in student, add this. And this way it's going to stop. So once it gets to student, it's going to stop. And then that will allow us to respond to what the teacher says. We can submit that and the teacher will respond to our response. So let's see how that works. So I'll just say, hello, my name is Aaron. See what happens here. What is your favorite place to travel? Okay, it kind of completed this. So why don't I complete my response by then adding teacher. So it's going to pick up the pattern here that it goes from student to teacher to student to teacher. And it's not going to complete any of my sentences. Nice to meet you. Oh, here, sorry. My name is Aaron. This should work. Hi, Aaron, nice to meet you. What do you like to do? I like to study English and travel. That's great. What kind of places have you traveled to? Traveled through North America, Europe, and South America. Wow, that's amazing. What is your favorite place? So this is good. This seems to work. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of this conversation. And what we need to do here is, now that we have this prompt set up, we can actually go over here. We can view the code that we're going to use in our program to create this language tutor. And this is essentially the API access here that we're going to use, right? So it has, we're going to give it our OpenAI API key. It's going to have our prompt that we wrote in here, our stop sequence, and there's a few other parameters as well. So before we take this, why don't we take a look at the other parameters? I think that the maximum length of the response, that's good, 256. And then the other thing here is temperature. So this might be important. Essentially what the temperature does is it controls what type of response or how GPT selects its response. So if we set this down to 0, it's going to be very deterministic. It's just going to choose the response that has the highest probability of being correct, right? So if you ask it the same question, it should always give you the same answer. If we crank it up here to 1, then it's going to be a little bit more creative, a little bit more flexible, and it's going to choose from a variety of different responses. So, generally speaking, if you want a very factual response, temperature 0. If you want something that's like more creative and flexible, temperature 1. So for us, I think we'll just go with temperature 0.5 right now. I think that will be fine. And everything else is good. So I'm going to take this code, I'm going to copy it, and then we can start programming. Okay, so what I've done, I've already created a folder and an empty file called LanguageBot. We copied our API code. So I'll just put that there for now. I'm going to need the OpenAI library to access this. And I'm going to start off just by building a class here. So class language bot. And it's not going to take in any parameters yet. So the first thing we need to do is we need to know that we can send GPT-3 a prompt and it will send us a response. And that's what this code is. So we'll create a function here, GPT response. And add this code. And so the API key, I just have a, so the API key, I just have a text file here that has my API key. So if you don't have one, you'll have to go to OpenAI and get it, and I'll just pull it into the program here. So open, call it again, OpenAI underscore key. That should work. And then we have our response here. So what I want to do is I'm going to take this prompt we created. And I'm going to take it out of this function. Because this is just going to be the initial prompt. So we'll call this initial prompt. This is initially what we're going to feed to GPT-3. I'll just clean this up a little bit. But this prompt is going to change as the conversation changes. And one of the things we want is we want this, we want our chatbot to have some memory of what we're talking about. Because if it doesn't, it may just ask the same question over and over again. We want it to be able to reply to our questions. So that's good. Turn prompt. And then this will take in, we'll call this prompt. Okay. Response, return, response. So what's going to happen here if we initialize this? And just test this out. Language bot, GPT. Here, I'm just going to do this for now, just for the testing. Just to test out if this works. Initial. So now it's sending our prompt to GPT. And then the teacher is just, or the GPT is returning this response. So this is what we want. This is the text, this is the response. So the way we're going to get that is we're going to access the key choices. And the first and only dictionary. No, yeah, the first list in choices, which is a dictionary, and then the text key. Okay, see how that works. And that works. Okay, so right now it's answering for us. That's not what we want, but that's fine. So take this out, put this back in here. Okay, so now we're able to access GPT-3 programmatically. The next thing we need to do is we actually need to create a conversation. So define conversation. And we're going to want to get our initial prompt. So this is going to go into GPT-3. We're going to want to print the initial statement made by the teacher. So it's going to be teacher. So this is what's going to show up in the text. At the start of the conversation. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to create a while loop. We're going to get student response equals input student. What is your name? Yeah, that's right. And then what I want to do is I want to append this response to the initial prompt. So prompt equals prompt plus, I'm actually going to take this out. So we're going to add it. So prompt plus new line, create a new line, and student plus student response. That's another new line. And then teacher. I think that will work. And then we're going to put this prompt in here. So this will be teacher response equals prompt print. Yeah, we want to print teacher, teacher's response. And then we want to append that to the prompt again. So prompt equals teacher response plus then a new line. I think, yeah, I mean, this probably won't work right away, but that's fine. We'll see how it goes. Plus a new line, and then we're also going to want to print student's response. We'll see how this works. I'm not really expecting it to work. And this will just keep looping and looping for as long as we want to have a conversation. Okay. Chatbot dot conversation. Hello, my name is Sandra. I'm your teacher today. Was your name? Hello, my name is Aaron. Aaron, it's nice to meet you. Where you're from? I'm from Canada. Well, that's cool. What do you like to do in Canada? Like to spend time with family and practice English. That's great. What kind of things do you do with your family? So yeah, I mean, this is working. Okay. What do I do with my family? Let's try this for a minute more. I like to travel and eat good food. Where are you from? I'm from the United States. I've traveled to. Where's your favorite place to visit? Yeah, I mean, like we're going back and forth, so this is good. The only thing is we don't need this. So this looks pretty good. I think that's completion of stage one. What do we want to do? We wanted to create a tutor chatbot that can engage in back and forth conversation, ask questions, answer questions, in English only. So I think that we're there. And now the next stage is to go and get rid of the text and actually change this so that we can engage in verbal conversation with the chatbot. So before we conclude, I'll just kind of walk through this code again, just to show how it works. So we created a class. We are going to initialize it with different variables, but not right now. That's going to be later. So we created this initial prompt in the GPT-3 playground, which essentially instructs GPT to act like an English language teacher and then provide some other instructions for it. Now this can be modified, and it will be modified later on, but it can be improved in many ways. This was just a quick prompt engineering task. So certainly there's room for improvement there. We created this function, which is how we're interacting with GPT-3. So when we have a question, when we're sending a response, we send it through this function, and then GPT-3 responds with its own text. And then this is the core of the conversation. So this is essentially, we initialize it with getting that initial prompt, just printing out how the conversation is going to start. This is also information contained in the prompt. So GPT-3 has this, and then using a while loop to go back and forth. So student response, we're responding to this initial question. Then we append that, can clean this up a little. We append that to that response to the initial prompt, put in a new line, indication that it's the student speaking now, and then another new line, and then an indication that now the teacher has to respond. So we put that together, we send that back to GPT-3, it creates a response, and then we also append the teacher's response to whatever the teacher's response was to the prompt. And then we just keep going back and forth and sending this back to GPT-3. And what this is doing is this is creating a record of the conversation. So for example, if I were to start this over again, okay, what is your name? Hello, my name is Aaron. What country are you from? Canada. That's great. What's the best thing about living in Canada? Say, nice country, very big. What do you like to do with your free time? Mostly spend time with family, make computer apps, and travel. Okay, so now when it asks me a question, I'm going to test it to see how much. That sounds like fun. What is your favorite place to visit when you travel? Do you remember my name? Of course, your name is Aaron, so it remembered, right? And that's the point of continuously appending the conversation or the new segments of the conversation onto the old segments and then putting it back into GPT-3. It has a memory, so I can also ask it, you know, what country am I from? And you're from Canada. So it remembers that. So it's like you're actually having a conversation with the person. And this is going to be really cool when we can have a verbal conversation and we can do this in different languages. So let's get to the next stage, stage 2, and actually begin speaking to this chatbot.